Disney or any other company, Apple, Facebook, whichever company you're thinking to serve as a vendor, if you're thinking about big companies, the more specialized you are, the better for these companies because they have the budget. They can pay the best.
Welcome. This is Unfolding, the show where I talk to creative business minds. My name is Marco Pfann, and today we are talking to Ezequiel Abramzon, which is a former vice president of global product creation at Disney, and he's running his own brand consultancy now. What I really liked about talking to Ezequiel is his clarity around what small startups should learn from big corporations like Disney. Enjoy the show. Welcome everyone. Today on the show we have Ezequiel Abramzon, and I'm really looking forward to this conversation today. Ezequiel, do you mind taking a minute and just introduce yourself? Because I just can't. You have done so many things. Please.
Sure. Thank you for having Marco. So I'm a brand consultant. I help entrepreneurs work on their brand strategy, moving away from trying to sell a product to actually build a brand. And I've been working with startups and founders around the world. I'm based in Madrid. I'm Argentinian, but I lived in London. So I had a journey internationally. So I'm using that expertise to help them achieve whatever country they are. Before this, I started doing this 2 years ago. I'm back on entrepreneurship. But before this, I worked for Disney for 22 years. I was an executive in Disney for 20 years in Latin America and almost 2 years in London for Europe. So I started as a freelance illustrator and graphic designer working for Disney in Argentina for Latin America. And over the years, I became the general manager of the digital businesses in the region, overseeing big teams, and we can talk about it. I launched multiple eight-figure businesses in Latin America in digital, and we can talk about it, both direct-to-consumer and B2B. So I have both expertise based on Disney. And in 19, yes, I was offered to move to London to lead creative teams across the region. My team was around 150 designers, creators, product developers in our region here, supporting the biggest brands. So we can talk about that as well. So that's kind of my journey.
Ezequiel, this is amazing. And my plan for your questions just went out the window. Thanks for the introduction. But what I really want to focus on is what you've just said. Like, what I really want to love is, how did you start 8-figure businesses? Like, what was your role on that? And one more thing that you didn't mention, you not only were the general manager, but you also became the vice president of product creation.
Yeah.
Right. And so you pretty much know a lot of how to start product, how to start. It's basically a startup within Disney, right? Those things you started. Is that correct?
Yeah, we were a startup within a corporation. I became what people call intrapreneur, which is an entrepreneur building things internally in a company. So when I joined Disney, I was a freelance designer doing websites and CD-ROMs in the 90s. So some people don't remember what a CD-ROM was.
Yeah.
But it was kind of a website in a CD. So you put the CD in a PC or a computer, you put click, and then you navigate it through interactive stuff. So I used to do that. So when I joined Disney in the 90s, I asked, in Argentina, where are the websites? But they didn't have a website. So I was responsible for launching the first Spanish and supported the Portuguese launch as well in Latin America back in the day. So because of that, I became the internet guy, the online guy, and I started getting more responsibilities in the business. Early on, it was just online marketing. We were learning, everyone was learning what internet could do for companies, what Disney could do in the digital space. It was tiny comparing to the huge other businesses. So we started studying and developing different things. And, to make it short, over 20 years, we built everything. I was responsible for leading teams that created the digital marketing for the company, the e-commerce efforts, digital distribution of content, mobile content. I traveled around Latin America helping mobile operators know how to download wallpapers and mini for Disney. So that's how I became a business guy, making those deals. And then I started launching in that time virtual worlds. The last one was Club Penguin, was a phenomenon around the world for kids. We developed the ad sales business in digital. So we built operations for clients to advertise in our digital media. What else? Video games, apps, mobile development. We had internal development teams, licensed businesses, so other developers would develop for us. So yeah.
Let me just go straight into and start with the hard questions. So you have a vast experience in actually launching products within a big corporation. So you actually, I guess you had all the marketing budgets you needed, things like that. So marketing and money wasn't the issue you had to tackle. But what I want to know from you now is what is, and I think you're uniquely positioned to answer this question. What is the value of branding to launching a product or a startup or a company? What is the value of a brand?
Oh, it's a really good, a very important questions. If you're a creator and you don't know this, you should go back to books and listen to a lot of podcasts, because brand, it's pretty much the most important thing that a business can build. I build a process to help entrepreneurs that I call it Epicenter, that I help people put customers at the epicenter of the brand, because everything is around your customers, and brand at the center of your business, because everything in your business should be aligned to your brand. So that's why I call it Epicenter. You probably had many people talking about this, but a brand is what people feel about a product, a service, organization, or even a person. It's like the reputation for a person. It has to be purposeful, meaning that you have to build a strategy behind it, to evoke those feelings, to influence what people feel about you. You can do it. And the practice to influencing, to doing things to create those experiences for people to feel, it's branding. That's the practice.
Okay, so this is something that Andy Neumeier talks a lot about, right? This his concept, like a brand is what people feel. Correct me. A brand is what people feel about the brand.
Yeah, I adopted Martin Neumeier's. There are many definitions. We are all saying the same with different words.
What I'm interested in is the application of a brand in a huge corporation. And the second question would be, how do you transfer what you've learned to startups and then the clients you work right now?
Well, we can talk for 5 hours about this.
We don't have 5 hours.
I know. Let me give you an example. People, in the past, before, we go online, but you go to see or to check what's in the theaters right now. What can we watch or go to the movies, the theater? But when it's a Disney movie, they go to the movies anyway without even knowing what type of movie it is, but they know that it's a Disney movie. Right?
Okay, got it.
So when there's a Disney in theaters, people go, regardless what it is. Sometimes they go even knowing what the trailer is. Parents take kids. So obviously there's a huge machine.
So that's an indicator for quality, and that's an indicator for having, like what you're going to experience, right?
A must in their lives. And that's because over decades, Disney built positive emotions around the brand. So we talked about feelings, emotions, right? So if you feel strong emotions about something, you're always going to remember it. That's for sure. Now, if those were positive, you're going to want to repeat that experience. If there were negative emotions, you're going to want to avoid it. So if we went to a Disney experience once and you had a great time, every time that Disney brings something to you, you're going to love it, or at least be interested about, right?
I love that. I love that what you just said, because it comes back to what I'm doing, like NLP and mindset, and it's like the mind remembers something when he can connect a feeling to it, right? And then that becomes a positive response loop. So what you're pretty much saying here is like a brand. You charge a brand with feelings, and that feeling actually helps the customer, the audience, to better remember the brand because they can attach a feeling. And what you do is like the experience you had, the feeling they connect that to the brand, right?
Yeah, and one of the most important tools to create those emotions, to make people feel, is storytelling, right? You tell a story, people feel they like it. I think the science have proven that when we are told stories, there's a stronger activity in our brain. It's more open to receive and feel things. So that's why storytelling is very important for marketing, for brand. So Disney, of course, is a storytelling company, and everything it does has a story or is based in a story. So it's easier to connect emotionally with customers. So customers are actually expecting a story from a brand like that. But a lot of great brands have learned how Disney did things over the years, and they've been applying that in complete different ways. Apple, for example, I talked about this before. When Steve Jobs is kicked out actually of Apple, he started doing different stuff. One of the things that he did was acquiring Pixar and working with Pixar at Disney, launching the first animated movies in computer generated animation movie,
True.
Toy Story. And during this process, it's told that Steve Jobs had a breakthrough, something that he never felt before, and it was the power of storytelling. Before leaving Apple, every advertising, every effort from Apple was product centric. Yeah. You would see a computer and they will tell you, we are the best. Our computer, blah, 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 blah. All features, functional stuff. When Steve Jobs comes back from the exile to Apple, and he reinvents everything at Apple, they started to launch amazing campaigns with one thing in common since day one until now, which they're telling stories where customers are in the story, in the center. Yeah. PC versus Mac, the dancers with the AirPods. There's always a human being where we can reflect ourselves or see ourselves reflected in that story, wearing or using something from Apple. So that changed when he learned the Disney way.
So what you're saying is you not only have to tell stories, but you have to tell stories around your customers. You actually have to make your customers the hero of that story. So
that's a good point. Yeah, so a story has characters, and we like to go to the movies because we see ourselves in those stories sometimes, and those are the ones that make us feel, inspired. There are frameworks to create great stories. The most famous one that obviously every movie you saw, it's applying it, is the hero's journey with different takes and different models and applications. In that story, you see a hero transforming and evolving into, I would say, a journey that takes him to become something new, someone that he didn't know he would or she would become. And by facing a big problem in the world and doing it along a mentor or a guide that they bump in somewhere in their journey that helps them beat the bad guy or the problem. The problem could be an asteroid, Darth Vader, you name it. And a lot of brands are using this. I help a lot of entrepreneurs build their story based on this. On this.
Let me get into that. That's what I want to know. How do you actually apply what you have learned in your career of, I think, like over 22 years, right? How do you help your current clients apply those principles? Basically, how do you incorporate storytelling into branding?
So when I left Disney, by the way, over those 2 decades that I led the digital efforts in a region for Disney, and I was connected to the global operations. I was always connected to the technology world. I mentor startups. Disney acquired a lot of startups. I participated in that. I witnessed hundreds of pitch days or demo days in accelerators, or I have friends with venture capital. So I've been always forever connected to this world. I invested in companies. I founded companies as well. And I always knew that when I left Disney, I would either become an entrepreneur or help entrepreneurs. And I did both now when I left. But the thing that I found when I left Disney is that Disney is so big, has so much budget, so high level aspirations, that when I started helping small companies, companies of one, the tools that I knew were too big, too demanding. Required a lot of quality that maybe some entrepreneurs or startups can apply. So I had to unlearn, take away those learnings and put new things. So I started studying again and reading a lot of books. I read more books in these 2 years than my entire life. I did courses and certifications, and I talked to great entrepreneurs asking what they needed. I did a lot of work to reimagine what I knew in order to package it in a way that I can help. So that's the long introduction to how I help. The first thing, you need to know who you are and what you want to achieve. Call it purpose, vision, mission, whatever, values, aspiration, goals, whatever you know you want to become, you need to have clarity about this, because that gives you the direction. Mm-hmm. So once you know the direction you want to go, or you want your company to go, then you start building the ammunition for you to make that happen. And that comes, I think, along with understanding what's the context of that direction, how many competitors you have, what you do, who's doing the same things, for whom are you doing, who's your core customer, or the type of problems you want to solve in the world, right? And so understanding that problem or that pain that you're helping cure or relieve, understanding who's actually doing that for them, which might be your competitor and could be direct or indirect competitors, and eventually deciding what's your difference, what makes you unique, why are they going to choose you instead of others. Whether you're a graphic designer or a production company, you might have something that is a little bit different from the rest. How can you put it in a way that people perceive that difference, that higher value from you? Could be your personality, could be part of your process, could be the quality of your talent, could be a specific knowledge about technical aspects of solving that problem, could be your connections to other things in the ecosystem that you're working on. It can be anything. And once you define all of that, which is really strategic, then you start developing what I call the brand expression. So you kind of provide a little bit of personality to your brand. You decide what type of brand you want. You develop the storytelling, the narrative, and then last but not least, identity. And I always recommend thinking about the identity for the 5 senses. So apart from the visuals, which everyone thinks, right? Like the identity is visual, right? Logos, typography, and all of that. But you can develop your identity with sound, with smell, with touch. If your product or the deliverable has something physical, you can actually design what people are going to feel, tactile experience. And if it's a box or it's an experiential service, you can actually smell something. Not even talking about food, if it's taste, if it's a food service or you have a space that serves coffee, for example. I don't know. So you need to think about the full length of what an identity is, because everything helps you create emotions and feelings. I don't know if I made it too complex.
No, we'll see. But I do have questions. So what you said and mentioned in the very beginning is you said, so a lot of the things that big corporations apply on the marketing and branding and stuff is not available as a tool or as a strategy for smaller companies because they basically just don't have the budgets, right? Or the manpower, which comes back to budgets again. And here's something I want to know from you. What do you think startups or smaller companies need to do, but they are afraid to do?
Oh, I love that question. That's my favorite one because I talk about this. But let me tell you one thing before this.
Okay.
So Disney or any other company, Apple, Facebook, whichever company you're thinking to serve as a vendor, if you're thinking about big companies, the more specialized you are, the better for these companies because they have the budget. They can pay the best. So they don't need a generalist, an agency that serves social media, website, logos, video production, voiceovers, and grassroots activities on a shopping mall. Disney has the budget. Facebook has the budget to hire a specific solver to one thing, best quality, right? So if you want to work with big companies, you have to specialize and be the best in something. They have the money to pay for the best. If you want to, if you are going to serve small businesses, you need to be a generalist because of that, because they don't have a budget. So for little money, they need a lot of value. And that's fine. If you can be as 4 to 6 points out of 10 in everything, like a balanced server for a small company, because they are not demanding 10 points.
I love it. I never heard it that way. This is amazing. So I'm quickly going to repeat it so I can actually remember it myself. But what you said, that's amazing. Like, if you want to work for big corporations, for big brands, you kind of need need to specialize, right? But if you want to help smaller companies, maybe even mid-sized companies, it's more like for them, it's better to be a generalist, right? So they can do more things, maybe even everything at once. So let's just call it a one-stop shop.
Yes, I always use this analogy about a small town and a big city. Like in a small town, you have the general store where they sell tires, dresses, food, mobile services, because they don't have enough critical mass in that city to have specialized stores. So they sell everything there. So in New York, for example, you can have a tiny store that sells only chocolate ice cream all day, all year, and they make millions. Why? Because they have enough critical mass to be the best chocolate ice cream in the world that is sold in one store in New York, right? So my point is, the smaller the market, the broader the offer. The bigger the market, the narrower the offer should be. And that's the same thing with the size of your client.
That's amazing. So this is amazing. So now let's get back to the original question. What do small companies need to do, but that they are afraid of doing? Is that the...
Yeah, I think it's thinking.
Thinking, okay.
I talk a lot about the need to stop doing and start thinking a little bit more. A lot of entrepreneurs that I know, that I meet, that I work with, are in this hustle culture of doing traction, launching fast, learning fast, and it's it's an ecosystem that is historically operating in the speed mode. And then we ask why most of startups crash. And it's because they're driving a very, very fast car in a very narrow street with a lot of traffic, right?
That's a great picture, yes.
So sometimes you need to slow down a little bit and think things through. Have a plan to operate, hypotheses, experiments to see, okay, if I do this or that, what's the outcome first before doing, and then learning about those. Building strategy, that's what I do, helping people build strategies before. The way I explained it before as well is, let's say that you're racing Formula One, and then you decide to kick off the race on the 14th line, just because you don't have time to think, right? So let's go back. Yeah. But if you have a strategy, if you start before launching, if you're a startup, you start thinking about what's the long-term range, even if you don't have the money to live for 10 years, but at least you know what you want to achieve in 10 years. Okay. You have a clear vision of what you need to what you need to do and what you want to solve for your customers. Then it's going to be easier for you to make decisions in the short term, because the short term is going to be functional to the long term.
So what you're saying is, with a strategy, you actually start in the pole position, and with a strategy, without a strategy, you're kind of in the back, and that's just because you just wanted quickly to get into the race.
I think it's when you know where you're going. Yeah. There are no distraction in the middle. The short term is not going to let you. So it's not going to obstaculize, because you know where you're going.
So a lot of those.
If you don't know the long range, the short term is your reality, and you don't know further, right? So you can see where are you going, and maybe you, because of you focusing only on the short term, one day you will see where you are, and you ended up somewhere that you didn't know or didn't want, just because you didn't plan where to go, right?
I love that, and sorry for interrupting you all the time, but you really trigger me with your comments. But that's amazing. So what you're saying is and I love that. It's because this hustle culture, right? It's true. A lot of startups, a lot of entrepreneurs these days, they don't think in the way you explained it. Doing is important. I have a lot of clients that don't do, they just strategize too much.
Of course.
But on the other hand, you can go too far and too deep into hustling, doing, launching, things, but don't think about what you're doing and not having that long-term strategy. And by that, you actually, you're not consistent, right? You're just changing directions all the time.
Yeah. And I'm not saying that, some people say paralysis for analysis, you stop, the only thing you do is analyzing things, then you're not moving forward. Mm-hmm. And I think it's the right balance between having the right strategy and thinking the strategy with the execution in mind, right? So the reason why you have a strategy is to execute. That's why you're building a strategy. If you have a strategy, the execution is going to be better. I can guarantee. No one that have gone through a strategic process had a bad outcome, unless the execution is really bad, right? But if you're executing all the time, not knowing where are you going, you might end up building a business you didn't want. Or, for example, attracting the wrong customers because they are not willing to pay more for your service. Mm-hmm. And that's because you didn't think through, okay, where do I get those clients? What do I say to these clients to actually raise my price? What are they used to pay to buy or purchase or consume around those customers, so I can stand out and differentiate myself, elevate my offer around those. If you go to the market to say the same things that others are saying, you're not adding something new or different, so they're not going to value more from those clients. There's a psychological advantage that brands brings to any business. It's psychological because if they perceive the brand, your business, more positively, it's more likely that they are going to, in their minds, attribute a higher value of your offer, right? Because it looks great, it sounds great, you're saying the right things to the right customer, so they are going to say, okay, this is great, this is for me, I need that, right? And they are open, technically or theoretically, they are more open and primed to pay for more. And I always give this example. This is an iPhone, and we pay more than what this piece of technology does for our lives. And the premium that we pay for is the brand.
Mm-hmm. I love how you connected. I actually love how you pointed out that if you have the wrong customers or wrong clients, whatever it is, it's because you're using the wrong message to the wrong people, right? Basically. So you actually attract people that may not be able to afford your services or may not understand your services, and you're left with basically crickets, nothing. So that's a bad business decision, or that's actually a failure of marketing and branding. I want to be personal. I want to get personal for a moment. And you don't have to answer that question, but I love asking that question. What was your biggest failure? Or what was your worst business decision? And what did you learn from it? We all make the wrong calls at sometimes, right?
I fucked up so many times. Let me give you a recent one. I was overthinking content. You and I talked about this before. I was reluctant to post and share my thoughts on LinkedIn or any other social media, just because I was super demanding excellence from me. So I demand excellence from others. So I was putting a lot of pressure on the type of content I was creating. So I used to post once a week or twice a week in a good week, just because I was afraid or I didn't like it, and I was overthinking it. And then one day I said, I need to break this. And I started posting every day. I started evolving and expressing what I thought, having my opinions and sharing to the right audience my expertise, and my business started to grow when I unlocked content that I was, for some reason, keeping for me. And I started sharing it with the world. The right customers started to understand that I know what I'm talking about, that I celebrate what I do. And I also, because I got some messages, I helped other people to get inspired about doing the same, because I saw the growth. So that's the latest breakthrough I had on a worse decision, which was keeping content for me, not for others.
That's such a big thing. And then this is like, for everyone out there, is probably the biggest thing at this moment in time. Actually understanding that, I mean, you just described it perfectly, right? You try to be excellent, and that was actually holding you back from sharing your message to the right people. And I know your posts, they're not bad. They're amazing. They're good. It's not like you didn't downplay the quality just because you now post daily. So what happened there?
Well, the thing is, the more I write, the more I learn about me, about what I think, what I have in my mind. You put it on paper, you go through, you edit, and then you share it with the world. It doesn't matter. The work is done. I learned something, and I did something for capitalizing on that learning curve. So what happens later? It's something that I learned how to. I'm not looking for likes or comments. I'm not really pressured about the traffic, although it's something that we creators need. I'm more focused on creating great value, and by doing so, I learn more, and I investigate things. I have a different view of things, and that makes me a better consultant. That makes me a better professional, I guess.
So this posting actually is that like how could you call it? Is this helping you to get better at your craft?
I do. Yeah, I do. And I do what I preach, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to build a story about the type of clients I help. If you look at my content, you're going to see 3, 4, 5 things. One is I talk to one specific audience, not to everyone. I always talk about brand strategy, creativity. I'm really narrowed in the topic. I don't talk, of course, 1 every 20, I can talk about football or something new that happens to my life, but I try to be really tight into the specificity of what I do, so people perceive the one thing that they need to understand. Mm-hmm. How can I help them? What do I know that can help them solve any problems? So that's why I focused on that. The other thing is I experiment all the time. Every day I change the formats. I use images or not, this word, the other. I repeat posts to see if twisted something. I learn something new. Which is something that requires a lot of time. I invest 2 hours a day on LinkedIn, for example, to create or post or read overall. So it's demanding, but it's useful. Has a return.
Do you have fun doing that?
I've been always a creator since I was a little kid. Mm-hmm. Creativity is my life. So in this part of my life, I'm creating in a way that serves this purpose. I'm an artist too, so I create in different ways off camera. But yeah, I think I'm enjoying it. Yeah, because I'm learning a lot.
So, Ezequiel, I want to be super respectful of your time. I know you have a call coming up. But one more question, if you don't mind. And my audience is mostly creative entrepreneurs. And since you're coming from you have the same background, what is your message to the creative community?
I think you need to dream big, really, really big. I didn't tell you the story. When I was 13, I was in first year of high school. In every country they call it different. And a teacher asked us to write in a paper, how do you see yourself in 10 years? And I wrote down, I see myself working at Disney.
Ooh.
That was 88. I was 13. And I was just an enthusiast about art. I was studying art design, illustration. I was copying artists. I was a kid. 10 years later, I was working for Disney, drawing the characters for Disney, and they were paying for me. And I didn't realize this until I met with that teacher that reminded me that I had written that paper in a reunion. Wow. I didn't know. So the very first day I worked for Disney, a dream came true. And then I had to create new dreams, bigger dreams, right? So I got in love of technology, and I dreamed about building big things for kids around Latin America or families, and you know the story. But dreaming big can help you achieve better things, regardless if you get what you dreamed. But probably trying to get there, you are going to at least move forward and not getting stuck.
I love it. That's a perfect message. I really appreciate everything you said today. Was an amazing interview. Thanks for your time. And I hope I have you agree to be on the show again sometime.
Let's do it.
Cool. So this was Ezequiel Abramzon, and we talked about how and why you should dream big, and what big corporations can tell us about starting a company and actually marketing and branding our venture. Thanks for your time, and I'm looking forward to seeing you again.